The scramble for the final flights out of Afghanistan. As the official deadline looms, there may be less than 48 hours to help thousands at Kabul airport desperate to flee the Taliban. We'll hear the Foreign Secretary has pledged to make
in the last 24 hours, we've got 2,000 out, so we're going to use every hour and day that we have remaining.
Also tonight, more shortages on the shelves and a warning from the boss of the co-op who says it's the worst he's ever seen. Plus,
Dame Sarah Story is unstoppable. Her appetite.
History made in Tokyo. Dame Sarah Story wins her 15th Paralympic gold. And after a 1,600-mile round trip, the 14-year-old who's become the youngest person to sail around Britain solo.
This is the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. Thousands of people are tonight locked in a desperate scramble to leave Afghanistan before the shutters come down on the evacuation airlifts out of Kabul. The Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, pledged Britain will use every remaining hour to get people out, but in practical terms, there could be as little as 2 days left. It's estimated nearly 2,000 interpreters and other Afghan staff who worked for Britain have passed security checks but remain on the ground. Many thousands more people are being prevented by the Taliban from going anywhere. Our correspondent John Ray reports.
No orderly retreat, no dignity in defeat. The West's exit ends with desperate people, some standing knee-deep in a sewage canal, besieging Kabul airport, beseeching guards to let them in. One British citizen, whose identity we are protecting, has twice tried and failed to get his children through this crush.
It was too much for us to handle. The kids started crying. One of them was my youngest was saying, have you brought us to die here? What are you doing? Take us back home. We don't want to be here. We don't want to do this. There's too much desperation.
Inside the perimeter, there is calm and order, but still too many people and not nearly enough time. Of Britain's 20-year mission, just days remain and every second counts.
We will try and maximise the window to get civilians out, the British nationals, the Afghan workers. In the last 24 hours, we've got 2,000 out, so we're going to use every hour and day that we have remaining.
The US deadline for withdrawal falls next Tuesday, but its troops will need 2 or 3 days to fly out, an operation that will need to begin by Sunday. 24 hours ahead of that, it's thought the last British troops will depart, and that leaves just tomorrow and Friday to complete the UK airlift. Kabul moves to a pace dictated by the Taliban, a race against time some are bound to lose, including those who have been our allies against the Islamists.
The very nature of the fact that we control inside the perimeter of the airfield and the Taliban effectively still controls outside means that not everyone we would wish to evacuate will be able to get through the Taliban checkpoints and into the airfield in time to catch one of the remaining evacuation flights. That's a sad reality.
This wreck of a building was once UK headquarters in Helmand province. Much blood was spilt here in the cause of Afghanistan's future. But those leaving and those left behind can no longer dream of what might have been. They can only worry about what comes next. John Ray, ITV News.
Well, let's go to our political correspondent Libby Vina, who's in Westminster this evening. Libby, how much damage do you think has been done to the so-called special relationship with America by their refusal to budge on extending that evacuation deadline?
Well, I put it to the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab earlier that the special relationship was effectively over. He said that wasn't right and there had been intense engagement. But the question is, to what end? Boris Johnson pleaded with the Americans for more time to get more people out of Afghanistan, and Joe Biden effectively refused flatly to change the timetable. Now, Sir Nicholas Soames, the grandson of Winston Churchill and a former MP, tweeted that this was an appalling betrayal of America's most loyal ally. The timetable that we're working to is America's timetable. We would definitely have done things differently if we had had the choice, and I think many good people are going to be left behind as a result.
All right, Libby in Westminster, thank you. Moving on, a major supermarket group, the Co-op, is saying tonight that the current food product shortages are the worst it's ever known. Disruption to supply chains being blamed on a shortage of lorry drivers is also affecting other big supermarkets, including Tesco and Iceland. Well, Peter Smith is outside a store in Glasgow. Peter, how bad are things getting?
Well, what we've seen is, well, the Co-op chief executive saying it is the worst that he has ever seen it from all his time in the business. And we have just been in the shop just behind me. These are some of the scenes that are confronting shoppers if they go in, an absence of goods that they need on the shelves. Of course, it's not that the shelves are completely bare, it's just there's a shortage, and the Co-op are saying that they are cutting supplies to make sure that they are able to provide their customers with what they need for the foreseeable future. But this has been blamed by the Co-op chief executive on Brexit. He mentioned specifically Brexit as well as the supply chains. We have looked into this, and we are hearing from the people who are involved in those supply chains, namely the lorry drivers, that there is a chronic shortage of drivers just now. Brexit impacting the ability to get foreign drivers from Europe to come into the UK. That's causing shortages, and then post-pandemic, obviously there's a backlog of new lorry drivers waiting to sit their tests. So the lorry companies are unable to hire the drivers they need to get the goods where they need to be. At the moment, it's not just Co-op, as you say, we're hearing others. Yesterday I was reporting on a milkshake shortage at McDonald's. We've heard of a chicken shortage at Nando's. KFC's been adjusting their menu. Arla are saying there's problems with milk. These might all seem trivial individually, but one by one they're accumulating to a bigger problem. And we're hearing tonight that there could be a shortage of blood tubes required for blood samples. When we're talking about medicine supplies, that's when it becomes a lot more serious.
All right, Peter in Glasgow, thank you. Police continued their search today for clues about the disappearance and suspected murder of the university chef Claudia Lawrence. Officers have been scouring a fishing lake in Woodland near York, but have not said what led them there. The area is just a few miles from where Claudia lived in the city before she vanished 12 years ago. Now, on a successful first day for Paralympics GB in Tokyo today, the crowning achievement belonged to a 43-year-old veteran competing in her 8th Games. Dame Sarah Story's track cycling gold was the 15th of her illustrious career, with the world record thrown in for good measure. Well, Lucy Watson reports from Manchester, where Dame Sarah's delighted family and fans were watching.
In her outstanding Paralympic career, and away they go.
She was the dominant force from the start. Just another day at the office for an athlete who's broken 76 world records across 4 decades.
That's a strong start. That is incredible, that.
Friends watched Dame Sarah Story in action from her hometown of Manchester.
Wow.
Oh my God. Her husband from their house in Cheshire. They witnessed the great Dame storm to her 15th Paralympic victory. Her teammate Crystal Lane Wright simply no match.
And Dame Sarah Story is unstoppable.
I still don't fully understand how she has so much drive and motivation to still, succeed and win as she does at the age of 43. It's just absolutely staggering.
She's just riding very close to that black line.
Sarah even smashed her own world record in qualifying and spoke to her daughter straight after the final.
As soon as she said, "Hello, Louisa," I was like, "Congratulations!"
Are you a little bit proud of her, Louisa?
1,000 times prouder than a little bit.
Sarah was born without a functioning left hand and was a swimming gold medalist first, only jumping on a bike in 2005. Those who've trained and competed with her are in awe.
She's a machine, she's just like a pure athlete, and yeah, I think she does probably strike fear into all her competitors, and the pedigree she's got, people are scared of her.
And they will be next week as well, when she'll defend 2 more titles to become Britain's most decorated Paralympian, with a focus that knows no bounds. Lucy Watson, ITV News, Manchester.
As we said, though, Paralympics GB have plenty more to celebrate after their campaign got off to a medal-winning start all round. 2 silvers in the cycling velodrome to go with Dame Sarah's gold, and 2 silvers and a bronze in swimming's first day of events. Well, Chloe Keedy rounds up the rest of the action.
And Crystal Lane has got her hands full here.
If Crystal Lane Wright was going to be beaten by anyone, there was some comfort in the fact it was not just her teammate, but the woman who inspired her to take up the sport.
Yeah, I watched her in Beijing, and I thought, oh, maybe I could give that a go.
Was there a bit of you hoping maybe you could beat her today?
Yeah, I train really hard to try and win. I don't train to win silvers, but just to be here in Tokyo, to actually get on the start line, and then to top it off with win the medal and making the final ride. Yeah, it's amazing.
There was another silver in the velodrome for Steve Bates and his guide Adam Duggleby.
And Steve Bates' Paralympic crown has gone.
But not totally content with second place, they're already looking ahead to their next race.
We're super psyched now to just to press on and hopefully go one better.
There was also success for Britain's swimmers. First Rhys Dunn,
so a silver medal,
and then Tully Kearney both won silver. Kearney agonisingly close to getting gold.
A real effort from Tully, but it is Zhang who takes it.
Hers was Britain's 6th medal in just one day of action. And the good news is there's another 9 to go. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News. These simple blood tests that could save the lives of newborn babies. And
how does the video vet consultation work? What shall I do?
Oh, hi Peggy.
Could this be the solution for a shortage of vets? Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. A simple blood test that can rule out a potentially fatal disease in pregnant women is to be rolled out across the NHS in England. Preeclampsia, whose early symptoms include high blood pressure, can threaten the lives of both expectant mothers and their unborn babies. Martha Fairley reports.
So I'm going to look at a simple blood test and it'll just let us know an indicator.
With this quick and inexpensive blood test, midwives at Doncaster Royal Infirmary can spot the early signs of preeclampsia. The potentially fatal disease affects 1 in 20 pregnant women. Symptoms include headaches and high blood pressure, but placental growth factor testing, known as PLGF, can help rule it out.
We've got a lot of women that like to self-diagnose on the internet. Obviously anxiety will give them high blood pressure, so we just bring them in and we do a BP series. We do the test if the series is reporting that we need to. Check the urine as well for proteinuria and check the function of the placenta by putting them on the monitor.
How useful is it for reducing anxiety in patients?
It's definitely reassured a lot more women in Doncaster.
In 2015, Caroline McFadgen and her unborn son Luke nearly died when she developed preeclampsia. With no test available, doctors hadn't realised she was critically ill.
I got into the ambulance, he'd actually said that this is the highest blood pressure he'd ever seen. Even in heart or stroke victims, it was 244/128 or therearound. And at that point, it was an emergency situation. So I was whisked off to be administered magnesium and straight to the hospital to have a cesarean section at that point.
Tens of thousands of women have already benefited from this test, but so far only on a limited basis. Now the test is being rolled out across all of England.
But campaigners can't understand why the same isn't happening in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
We know the test works, we know it's good, we know that women want it, and we know that women want that certainty. We also know that it saves money for the NHS, £7 million a year if properly rolled out.
They say the test is a small price to pay for what could be a life-saving diagnosis. Martha Fairley, ITV News, Doncaster.
Packets of pork scratchings are being pulled from the shelves of shops and pubs tonight after 176 people fell ill with salmonella, at least a dozen of them needing hospital treatment. Well, the products are being recalled were all made by the snack giant Tato Group at their plant in Bolton. Our North of England reporter Hannah Miller is there. Hannah, what more do we know about this?
Well, Tato Group have apologised tonight and temporarily stopped using this factory while they put extra safety measures in place. It comes, as you say, after more than 170 cases of salmonella poisoning, all in the past year, were traced back to this factory. 12 people had to spend time in hospital. Scientists at Public Health England have found because of their symptoms, which even in its mildest form, salmonella poisoning, can involve fever, diarrhea and stomach cramps. Today, the Food Standards Agency has started to take these products off their shelves. They're warning people not to eat them. You might recognise them under the brands of Mr. Porky, Jay's and the Real Pork Crackling Company. If they have a best before date before the 19th of February next year, the warning is not to eat them. What should you do if they're already sitting there in the cupboard at home waiting to be eaten? You can take them back to the shop where you bought them, where you can get a full refund.
OK, Hannah, thank you. And if you think you may be affected and want to see the full list of recalled products, go to our website, that's itv.com/news. A report into the use of police tasers has warned that unless serious concerns are addressed, officers could lose public trust. There are worries that tasers are being increasingly used on children and people who have mental health issues. Well, police groups say the report is based on too few incidents. Young adults smoking in England rose by a quarter during the first lockdown, according to a new study. Cancer Research UK found the number of 18 to 34-year-old smokers sharply increased compared to before the pandemic, but the amount of people quitting the habit has also gone up. And Sharon Graham has been elected the new leader of trade union Unite with 37% of the vote. She's the organisation's first female leader and takes over from Len McCluskey, who held the position for more than a decade. Now, as well as the food product disruptions we highlighted earlier, there's another kind of shortage being reported tonight, a lack of vets to treat sick animals. One of the biggest chains of animal clinics says it has a staffing crisis because fewer vets from overseas are now working in the UK. The surge in pet ownership during the pandemic has made things worse. In 2019, around 95 vets a month were coming to the UK from the EU, but that has now dropped to 31. Meanwhile, the UK dog population has grown by 3 million to 12.5 million. And there are more cats too, up almost 5 million to 12.2 million. Well, with more, here's our consumer editor, Chris Choi.
This is Bella. If you think she looks like she's had problems, her vet is going through a tough time too, with what some in the profession are now calling a staffing crisis. For worried owners, getting an appointment is not as easy as it should be.
There was something wrong with her eye, and when I had a look, it looked like she was blind. The vet that she's registered with were only doing telephone appointments, which was a bit pointless because she really needed to be seen by someone. And I couldn't get one anyway for like another week. I was just quite worried about, you know, the complications of leaving it for so long.
Bella's story shows the problem. There's been an increase in pet ownership coinciding with a shortage of vets. And because it takes 5 years to train to be one, there seems to be no quick solution.
Good afternoon, Neighbourhood Vet. Eastenders Jelly speaking. How can I help?
At this busy surgery, there are often now longer wait times for routine appointments. Test results can take longer. The profession is short of vets and animal nurses.
We've seen millions more animals becoming pets in the past year due to people having increased time at home. What we're also finding is due to Brexit that we're having decreased numbers of European vets working over here. So unfortunately, we're unable to meet that current demand for pet services. Also, COVID's got the inevitable impact with people having to self-isolate.
How does the video vet consultation work? What shall I do?
Oh, hi, Peggy.
5-month-old Peggy joined me for a video vet demonstration. Expect more of these remote consultations designed to make maximum use of vet time.
Obviously, it is very limited what we can diagnose, so it's more about peace of mind and determining whether they do need to be seen in person.
Many vets now fear that postponed vaccinations and delayed appointments could lead to a treatment time bomb building up. They're speaking out now to try to find solutions because those most affected by all this can't talk for themselves. Chris Choi, ITV News.
Bit of sport now. The England captain Harry Kane said today he is staying at his club, Tottenham. There was speculation all summer that the striker might join Premier League champions Manchester City, but the move didn't materialise. Well, Kane now says he is 100% focused on helping Spurs achieve success. And finally, it's often moving to see young and old come together, but when 14-year-old Katie McCabe and 82-year-old Murdoch McGregor held each other across the ocean waves, it really was quite a unique moment. They crossed routes as both were sailing solo around Great Britain, the youngest and the oldest sailors ever to do it. Dan Rivers reports.
After 1,600 miles and almost 2 months sailing, this was the moment Katie McCabe broke the record to become the youngest person to sail around Britain at just 14 years old.
I wasn't really sure if I'd be able to do it, and I've managed to do it on hardly any money. I didn't think it was possible like 6 months ago, and now we've done it.
Shadowed by her father on his boat, Katie set off on a classic 70-year-old yacht, Philander, which she'd helped to rescue from being scrapped. Her voyage has raised thousands of pounds for the marine conservation charity Sea Shepherd.
It's a bit foggy, but behind me we have the White Cliffs of Dover. We did an overnight trip and we had dolphins in the phosphorescence, and all you can see is like this green torpedo shooting through the water.
As Katie was involved in her epic voyage, another record attempt was underway by Murdoch McGregor, who was about to become the oldest person to circumnavigate the British mainland. Katie's journey began in Topsham in South Devon and went 1,600 miles anti-clockwise via the Caledonian Canal. Meanwhile, 82-year-old Murdoch McGregor, who'd set off from his hometown of Alloa in Clackmannanshire, was venturing 1,900 miles clockwise. The pair crossed paths at Oban. The two sailors haven't seen each other since then, but today we reconnected the two record breakers.
I've told everybody that you're my highlight. I really mean that. I've never met anybody as exciting in the sailing world.
Thank you. Well, I think your trip's been really impressive as well, especially at 82.
While most teenagers are staring at their phones, Katie is setting her sights on more distant horizons, determined to have further adventures on Philander. Dan Rivers, ITV News, Topsham.
Oh, what a story she'll have to tell when she goes back to school. That is all for now. Julie is back with news at 10, but from me and all the team, bye-bye.